At the engine station in the main assembly building, the engine is waiting to be installed in the chassis. It's now lowered toward the assembly line from above. Below, the axles are already waiting to be connected to the drive shaft, and then both will be attached to the chassis. From now on, the assembly line is fully automatic. The clock is always ticking. The engine has arrived, fully fitted and weighing it at 2,000 kilograms. This is one of the most important sequences at the plant. Everything has to fit perfectly.
I guide the engine. That means I make sure it's lowered exactly into the chassis. We all have to pay attention that none of the cables get damaged in the process. It's pretty tricky.
But it works. A wonderful sight for fans of pure, brute horsepower.
Fantastic. We call this a marriage. We have 3 marriages in the factory: the axles with the chassis, the engine with the chassis, and the cab with the chassis. So this is a happy occasion for us.
There are only 3 connections between the engine and the chassis, but that's enough.
When I see one of our trucks on the road, see its engine, I say to myself, I did that. I installed that engine. It always fills me with pride when a Volvo truck drives by. It's a great job.
A computer is used during the final stage of installation, the so-called Mont system for fixing the engine in position, individually according to the stored chassis number.
The torque settings for the connections are stored in the computer. If these values aren't achieved, things can't progress. The computer control ensures that the connection is made correctly and the customer can be satisfied.
Now the chassis gets its 5th wheel. It will later connect the truck with the trailer. From here, it isn't much further until the final marriage in the factory is performed. Before its marriage in the main building, the custom cab has to be fitted out, here at Cab Trim. The still bare cabs, which arrived from Sweden by train just this morning, wait in front of the building. It's now time to fit them out, each totally unique and different. 300 workers in the cab trim department transform the bare shells into fully furnished cabs. Mats, wall panels, loudspeakers, all fitted by hand. And especially important, the bed. 74 or 88 by 200 centimeters in size. Many customers request 2 fold-away bunks, one above the other, as in this case. Rubber seals. How important they are for the production operation in the huge truck factory will become apparent later on. Next to the cab assembly line, a handful of workers are dealing with the truck's electrical systems. From nearly 100 different switches and plugs, they find the right ones for each truck and assemble the instrument cluster. The steering wheel pedestal is installed now too. They check whether all the connections are correct at a test station, and the instrument cluster is powered up for the first time.
The area surrounding the steering wheel is especially important. The main concern is the electronics, but we check every rivet and screw, and whether all the connectors are plugged in as well.
Modern trucks like the FH are full of computers. There's one element that's particularly important for the steering. It's a special electric motor on the steering column of the truck. Sensors dotted around the truck and in proximity to the driver transmit information to this motor 2,000 times a second. The result? It makes maneuvering less strenuous, assists in lane keeping, compensates for strong crosswinds, and even minimizes the impact of potholes. Volvo calls this dynamic steering. Silicone adhesive is now applied to the finished instrument cluster. A special hoist arm lowers the central element of the cockpit into the cab. A few screws and it's fixed in place. It takes 5.5 hours for a cab to complete its journey through the cab trim building in the truck mega factory. And no two cabs are alike. One of the 300 women in the factory works in the final third of the building. Celine Colin from Ghent loves working on trucks.
When I tell people I build trucks, they're always surprised because I'm not big and strong, but rather a small girl. But they're impressed by the fact, and that makes me feel good.
The windshields, one of the few components in the mega factory installed by a robot. First, it measures the exact dimensions of the cab. Then it grabs the appropriate windshield, applies silicone, and installs it with millimeter precision. The unit cost €2.5 million.
It's important that this task is performed by the robot. We need absolute precision here. This is vital in order that the windshield sits securely and is windproof.
But despite this, it doesn't always work flawlessly, as we'll soon see. Time for the seats. There are 12 different models to choose from, all designed for comfort and durability. Now comes the steering wheel. Every one individually adjusted and mounted with this torque wrench. This is followed by the doors, side view mirrors, and labels. But the cab can't be mounted on the chassis just yet. We'll find out why in a minute. Many operations in the mega factory involve strenuous manual work, but the tasks this employee performs, just using muscle power, are soon to be made easier. The truck manufacturer is testing a new technology in the cab trim section, exoskeletons.
I don't think this here is sitting right yet. I don't think you need to move your arm so far back. Hold it up again. Now it's activated.
The mechanical lifting aid developed in the USA should lighten the load on workers.
There are some tests that involve workers lifting up to and above shoulder height. The exoskeleton helps them do this.
For example, when I'm attaching the roof strip and take that tool
The tool from up there.
above my shoulder.
Yes.
Operator Edouard Dumont gets started. The braces of the device reduce the weight of the lifted parts, by almost 7 kilograms. It doesn't make Edward faster, but he'll have fewer shoulder and back problems later in life.
Actually, it is quite easy, but you have to get used to it. During the first 3 weeks, I had to make big adjustments to my work rhythm and the order of my work steps, too.
A robot wouldn't help here.
A robot is an option where you have to perform the same task over and over again. That can be automated, but that's difficult to do in our factory because we have far too many truck and cab variants. We need the flexibility offered by our workers. We're a factory with humans and need our operators. So I believe that an exoskeleton is better than a robot.
Workers like Edward are testing the technology at 5 stations in the plant. If the results are positive, it could become commonplace here. Back to our cab. Like every cab in the truck factory, custom built according to the customer's wishes. Emre Tamis checks whether all the optional extras are installed.
There's a microwave installed in this truck. This is practical for the driver. He can use it to warm up or defrost things. The microwave has an LED light, 3 power settings, and a defrost function. It has a 17-liter capacity. And down here, we have a 33-liter fridge. It can also be used as a freezer. The seat here has air suspension. You can adjust it to any height, which I think is a good feature as you don't feel the potholes and bumps as much. There's a touch screen with navigation system and popular apps like the Dynafleet system. This allows the driver to monitor all his trips and activities and store them for 2 years. If I were a truck driver, I'd feel really comfortable here. There's plenty of space, you can stand upright, the bed is great, and there's loads of space to store things like clothing and food. There's more storage space up here too. And there's a mirror for putting on makeup or shaving. You can do everything in here.
This custom mass production operation is made possible thanks to a sophisticated logistics system, but something is still missing.
The cab is now fully assembled, and it could now move on to final assembly. But this one is going to be subjected to a water test. Sam here will take it over to the water testing bay and check if there are any leaks.
The cabs are chosen at random, and team leader Gunther de Klerk is a little nervous before each of these tests.
We occasionally have problems with the robots resulting in a leaky windshield or roof hatch. Roof antennas which don't sit securely enough and allow water to get in can be a problem too. Fingers crossed, that shouldn't happen normally.
If the cab has a leak, they have to test the 10 preceding and the 10 following cabs too. This slows down production in the entire factory significantly. A 15-minute drenching, then it moves to the yard to be manually inspected with a flashlight. If tester Kenfang Holuva discovers even a small puddle, production will be halted. But everything's fine this time. The hoped-for stamp of approval.
The cab is okay, no leaks. It can now be brought over to final assembly.